Hey, happy Friday. Yeah, well, we're fastly approaching the end of 2021. I hope you are taking the time to reflect on your year and praying about, your plans and seeking God for, how you should position yourself in 2022. But today, we're here to um, talk about uh, the next video in our pop-up series, and it's what dedication is not. Last Friday, I talked to you about dedication, how to be dedicated to someone or something is to sacrifice for, to be devoted, to be loyal, to be committed to something or someone, at really all costs sometimes, you know. And I talked about, being dedicated God's way. And it's not just with our lip service, but with our actions, more so to speak. But today I want to talk to you about what dedication is not. And sometimes I think we've used dedication to God and to other things as a way to exclude and to not include people, or to ostracize, or to cause people to be hurt and harmed. And so I just want us to understand that today, that dedication God's way is really, it's inclusive. It's not to exclude. It's ultimately the end goal is to include folks. Is to give everyone an opportunity to experience God, to experience the love of God, and to receive eternal life. That's really ultimately what God is looking to do. And we find that in Jesus. We find that in Jesus. Jesus is, he said, I came, right, to do the will of the Father who sent me. He was dedicated to that. He was dedicated to coming and to being born, to living his life, to being crucified, and to the resurrection. And he was dedicated to the death on the cross. He had a dedication. He had a zeal for the things of God. But ultimately, I want us to understand his dedication was to include, once again, and not exclude. His dedication was to give every child born of a woman the chance to be included in the kingdom. That's what his dedication was about. Because in Psalms 51, chapter 51, verse 17, it says, the sacrifices, this is the King James Version, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. These, O God, you will not despise. That's what the psalmist said. A broken spirit and a contrite heart you will not despise. In the New Living Translation version, it says, the sacrifice you desire, God, the sacrifice you desire, the dedication you desire, is a broken spirit. You will not reject a broken and repentant heart, oh God. And so, Jesus' whole purpose was to bring us to God with a broken spirit and a contrite heart, a changed mind. Come on, a way of turning our thoughts and turning our actions from sin and doing wrong to living a life that's pleasing to God. It's turning our mistakes into triumphs. It's turning our grief into joy. He came so that we could be, dedicated the God's way, because that's who he was dedicated to, and it was God's way, and it was never to exclude people. It was to give people the opportunity to be included. And so that reminds me, and I just want to talk a little bit about this. I'm not as, knowledgeable about this probably as I should be, but I hear people talking about cancel culture. Cancel culture is when people, especially celebrities or people in the public eye, will say or do something that's offensive to a group of people or to someone, and then people go on to social media and begin to attack them and begin to speak ill of them. And then if there's like companies or businesses or things that support them, then they lose their support, they lose their job, or they may lose their livelihood. They lose all of that, their way to make a living, their way to live, because of this so-called thing, cancel culture. And so, and I'm not sure if cancel culture allows people a way back in. Once you have done it, you're an outcast and it's done. And people have labeled you that and it's over. You're canceled. But that's not God's way. That's not God's way. You know what I'm saying? God's way is never to leave people in their guilt and shame. Never to leave people to sit in their guilt and shame. God's way is always opening a door, right? So that people can come back from their guilt and shame. Dedication God's way will not leave people with no hope, will not leave people with no way to come back. It opens the door for people to be able to come back. You get what I'm saying? It opens the door for people to, change their wrongs, or come back from their wrongs, or to make better decisions, or to apologize, and their apology be accepted, for them to have an opportunity to demonstrate that maybe they've changed, or maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they thought a certain way at that time, but now they don't think that way anymore. See, that's what Jesus did in his dedication God's way. And so must we. We're never to be dedicated to something till we don't allow people to be able to receive the love of God. And sometimes we've used our dedication to God to do that. To stand at the door of God's church. And I'm not talking about a building. I'm talking about, God's church. It's outside of a building. It's bigger than that. I'm talking about when we stand at the door in the spirit of our dedication. We exclude people, and we don't allow people a way in, or a way back in, or even a way to come in. So God's dedication was never intended to do that. His way was never intended for us to do that. When we think about the Samaritan woman at the well, she was able to come back. Maybe Peter probably would have been a part of the cancel culture. Come on. Peter, you did what? Oh, the social media would have ate it up. They would have trolled him. You denied him. Oh, you let him die. Oh my God. Crucify him, crucify him. You would have said to Peter. He would have been a part of the cancel culture. But what did Jesus do with Peter? Peter denied him 3 times, and Jesus still turned around, and he said, upon this rock, upon this type of faith that Peter has, I will build my church. And he gave Peter an opportunity to come back. He said, Peter, do you love me? He said, yes, Lord. And he told Peter, feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. And he asked Peter 3 times because Peter denied him 3 times. So his dedication to God hadn't changed. His dedication God's way hadn't changed. It hadn't changed. He just gave Peter a way to really be dedicated and to come back and live a life of dedication God's way. Because if you know the story of Peter, Peter did die on the cross, upside down. And once again, Peter gave his life like Christ so that we all can have an opportunity to come back and to be dedicated God's way. So the next time you encounter someone and your dedication and your zeal for God does not leave people room to come back from their guilt and shame, or does not leave people room to come back from wrong decisions, or living a life that maybe you didn't accept, and but and maybe God didn't either. But it's not your call. God says a broken spirit and a contrite heart, a changed mind and a changed heart, He would not deny. So listen. Well, God is looking for dedication. God is looking for dedication that eventually allows people to be included and not excluded. Much love, Keita.